meeting of the Mobile Online Sports Betting Task Force. Appreciate everybody coming, the members of the task force and the members of the public. I'm Senator David Blunt. I'm chairman of the Senate Gaming Committee and co-chair of the task force, along with Representative Casey Urey. I'll let the House Chairman, Representative Urey, let you know kind of what we're thinking on the agenda for today. We appreciate, we want everybody to know that we want these meetings to be open to the public and streamed on the Mississippi Legislative YouTube channel. So thank you again to the members for your willingness to serve and to everybody for coming this afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Blunt. Once again, thank y'all for being here. Thank you to the members for your willingness to serve. I feel like today, as we go through this agenda, we're going to change it up a little. Jay will go first, and then Andrea will go second because they have PowerPoints. After that, we'll go back to Chris and follow the agenda. After this meeting, going forward, we will allow other members in the industry to speak. But today, we're going to follow the agenda of the members that have been appointed. My goal coming into this is to try to figure out what the bill should look like moving forward. I want to ask all the members to be honest of where you stand, who you represent, what you want to see in the bill, or if you don't like the bill. I can tell you from the House position, we plan on having a mobile sports betting bill. Just want y'all to know that going forward. That's where I stand. I've made many comments to the press in years past. I had a bill last year. You've been provided with the bill that I had last year. I know the industry's changed a little bit, so I feel like there'll be some tweaking that needs to be done. And I just asked the members let's work through this process. I feel like we'll have at least 2 more meetings going forward. So I just wanted everybody to know my position as a House member and where I stand. And once again, thank y'all for being here, and we'll turn it over to Jay.
It is now. Thank you. So basically just run through some talking points. I passed a few of these out, but I'm just going to run through kind of how the landscape is in Mississippi right now, what we have going on, so that as we look at this bill and as we study this, we kind of have an idea of considerations, things to take into account. So right now in Mississippi, we have 26 licensed casino operators. Every one of them runs a retail sports book. When the PASPA, the federal ban, was repealed in 2018, our state law already allowed for this. So that's what we've been operating under since 2018. August 1st, 2018, our first book went live, and by the end of 2019, every casino had a retail book, and none of them have closed. They've been open ever since, and it's been pretty successful, I might add. When it first went live, we kind of scared what we were opening the door to, but to be honest, and I give our operators and our regulatory environment credit for this, it's gone very smoothly. Wagers have been taken at all levels. We don't really have caps on anything. We don't restrict anything. We let the market dictate what's being done, but it has to be done on the premises. That's the key here, and I'll go over those statutes later. So what we have is that our operators, we have either a retail counter, a kiosk, or even some operators, as I mentioned at the bottom, the Beau Rivage, Palace Casino, and Treasure Bay actually take wagers on the premises with a mobile device, but it is geo-fenced within the premises of the casinos because there is no restriction on using a mobile device. It's just where the wager's made. We do have 14 various manufacturers and distributors that actually work with casinos, provide support, things like that. So they are licensed as well to provide the wagering software, things of that nature. The Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians also operate sports wagering on their reservation, as well as down in the Bachoma Casino, and they're soon to open a third location near Louisville, Mississippi. We also have the Fantasy Contest Act, which allows fantasy contest operators. They are licensed separately. The Gaming Commission does license them, but that is for fantasy contests only. So I really don't think that's going to intertwine here at all. As I mentioned, wagering began in 2018. In 2018, we had 157 million wagered. Our hold generally through the years is 10 to 12%. So typically 10 to 12% is what you're going to see the revenue at. That's what the hold is, how much you're taking of those wagers. So first year, 15 million in revenue at our 8% state tax rate. I only mentioned state taxes here. There's also 4% local. In the first year, we did a little over $1 million. As you can see by the 2019, when we had a full year of sports betting, it doubled, more than doubled to 370 million wagered. In 2020, during COVID, even with 2 months of the casino shut down and a lot of sporting events not happening, we almost went above 2019, which was, it just shows you the growth we were seeing. 2019, we went up to 365 million, even with a reduced option out there. 2021 was just a banner year for gaming all around. After COVID, people getting out, people having disposable income to use, we got up to 600 million wagered, which is outstanding, 70 million revenue, and the top tax year at 5.6 million. I show this to say in 2022, you see it drop. It went to 535 million. The reason is that 2022 is really when you started seeing our neighboring states get rolling. Louisiana, Arkansas, and Tennessee all started introducing wagering. And for the first year, our growth turned around. So not only did we not see growth, we retracted about 10% across. We saw it in Tunica, we saw it on the coast. So that's one of the reasons we're here today. We're starting to see other states start to come in, and our market's actually retracting. 2023, as of July, we've had 244 million wagered. If you estimate that annualized, football season's our big season. We expect to hit around 510 million wagered, somewhere in that mark, but it's still going to be less than last year. To date, we've had over 2.25 billion wagered, which is a big number, but if you think about Louisiana's about to hit 4 billion, and they've only been going for 2 years. So it just shows how much more they're doing with the mobile option. This is a little bit about our regional revenue. As I mentioned, Tennessee began offering mobile only. They don't have brick and mortar casinos. So they have about 11 mobile operators in their state. They began in November 2020. Arkansas began offering retail in July 2019, but they didn't really get going with their mobile offering. It was a little clunky to start with. 2022 was really when they got things going. So we're just now seeing them come along. But Louisiana was the one right before the Super Bowl last year. They got going, and they had a fantastic 2022, and then 2023 is probably going to surpass that. I put some of their revenue numbers out. Obviously, Tennessee's got a benefit of a higher population, but their first year, 2.7 billion wagered. The next year, 3.8 billion wagered. This year, halfway through the year, they already had 2 billion wagered, so they're going to surpass. We're seeing in all these markets. They're surpassing the year before. It's just becoming more and more popular. And it's what I hope, if we end up with a mobile bill, we'll see the same thing. This is just a map. The AGA provides this. This is our current sports betting market. Every state in red currently has some form of legal betting. Some of it's retail, some of it's mobile. But as you can see, we have a region here in the Southeast that still isn't doing it. Florida is currently in a legal battle to get it done. The Seminole tribe is fighting for the right to offer that exclusively in Florida. But outside of that, we still have Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina that does not have sports betting, and then Texas to the west. But our neighbors, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Louisiana have it. And then of this, these are the ones that have mobile. So as you can see, mobile is becoming kind of the way to go. We have a few states, us and some up here in the Northeast, that if I go back, that have retail but don't have mobile. But as you can see, most of the Northeast, Midwest, and our neighboring states have a mobile betting option. This is just some points to consider. People ask me how to estimate, potential revenue. It's a hard thing to quantify, but what I can say is Louisiana right out of the gate had 2 billion wagered on mobile. We have about 65% of their population. I don't know if we'd necessarily get 65% of what they're getting wagered. They do benefit a lot from Texas, people coming over from Texas. We would benefit somewhat from Alabama. They don't have an option. So their ratio is about 15% retail and 85% mobile, but they kind of started out of the gate with both. They had retail just for a very brief period and then went online with mobile. Our retail is a little more established, so our breakdown might not be quite as thin on the retail side. I do expect we would retain a good bit of retail wagering. There are still people that like to go bet in person. So it is conceivably that we could double our handle, our wagers, double our revenue, or even do slightly better than that, just based off what our neighbors are doing. Just so you know, nationwide, 2017, before sports betting, our total US commercial gaming revenue was about 40 billion. We represented about 5% of that number. We usually run about number 6 in the nation because we have 26 casinos and a good gaming market. Now in 2022, when you add sports betting and expansion of gaming, that commercial gaming revenue was 60 billion. So it's gone up considerably. We're now about 4% of that number because more casinos out there, more options for people. The commercial sports betting revenue of that is about 7.5 billion. It jumped 75% from 4 billion in 22. So anyone that watches sports knows that it's just becoming part of the whole sports industry as a whole. Illegal gaming is a big part of this. It's something that Representative Uri wanted me to talk about. One of the problems we have is we do have an illegal gaming market at the Gaming Commission. With the resources we have, we battle with it, but it's a tough thing, especially when we're talking about mobile sports betting that's offshore. It really takes almost a federal prosecution to come in to reach out of country and target those companies. But the AGA estimates that about 63 billion is wagered on sports illegally every year, which is about 50% of the overall gaming market. That's probably very similar here. I would imagine if you took our revenue, I bet about half that number is probably wagered illegally in our state. We do a pretty good job of trying to attack the local bookies that we get complaints about, but getting those offshore operators, the best way to get them is a robust legal gaming market. As I mentioned here, after New Jersey went live with mobile in 2018, 2 large bookmakers exited the market, illegal bookmakers. After New York went live in 21, Bovada, which is one of the big ones, announced they were getting out of the market, primarily because they knew they were going to start facing more stringent rules, prosecutions, as well as they were losing their customer base to the legal market. And then these are some statutory considerations. As I mentioned, we've got 3 statutes that specifically say you must wager either in an establishment, on a cruise vessel. I just put these down for us to consider going forward. Any bill would probably need to address these 3 statutes, some kind of change to them. I don't think it would take major changes, just take off the requirements for betting on premises for sports betting would be the tweak there. And then finally, some tax considerations. As I mentioned, we tax at 8% on all gaming. There's no change for sports betting. Although when the infrastructure bill was passed in 2018 in the special session, sports betting revenue was earmarked specifically for the infrastructure package, and that lasts through 2028. So we just need to be aware, unless we want to change that, if we pass something that's mobile sports, it'll fall in that because the language of the statute simply says revenue collected as a result of wagers on sporting events. So obviously this would fall in that as well. So something else to consider going forward. If we want tax to go to a different place, that would be something that needs to be addressed. And many states are starting to earmark, since sports wagering is a new thing, take that tax revenue and earmark it toward things like problem gambling, consumer protection initiatives, things like that. So that's the end of my presentation. If y'all have any questions for me, I do have a few handouts, but if anyone needs any of this information, I'll be happy to email it to you after this meeting if you want to come to me. Is there anything else y'all need at this time?
No, thank you, Jay.
One other point I will make, from the regulatory side, I would say the MGC has a neutral position on this, obviously, but if a bill were to pass, because our operators are already doing this and we already know the technology, I feel like the regulatory side would be a pretty quick, probably 60 to 90-day window of piggybacking any legislation. So I don't see any concerns there from our standpoint of being able to implement anything that you have in a bill.
All right. Thank you very much. Andrea?
Hi, just working on sharing my screen to be. Oh. Does everyone see my screen? Oh, gosh.
No, we cannot.
All right, I think I'm frozen. Give me just a moment and. Oh.
Who was that? There we go.
Okay, there we go. Hi, everyone. I want to thank you all for having me here today. I'm here to provide an overview on the status of sports betting in the States and talk about some of the trends we've been seeing from a fiscal policy perspective. My name is Andrea Jimenez, and I'm with the National Conference of State Legislatures Fiscal Affairs Program. I help cover tax and gambling issues for the organization. If you're not familiar with NCSL, we're a bipartisan organization that serves legislators and legislative staff of the states and territories. We provide research and analysis on all manner of policy topics. We lobby on behalf of state interest at the federal level, and we promote learning and communication between states. I just want to clarify that we don't have an official opinion on state sports betting policies. So jumping right in, this map shows the current status of sports betting implementation across the country. It's been authorized in 32 states, DC, and Puerto Rico. 6 of them do not have state-approved gambling, but they have worked with Native American governments to authorize it at tribal casinos. And those are the states in red here. A significant majority of the states that have authorized sports betting have also provided for sports betting over the internet as well. There's only 6 of the commercial sports betting states that haven't authorized it yet. Sports betting, as mentioned before, it was prohibited under the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act until it was struck down by the Supreme Court in May 2018. So this map has filled up pretty quickly over the last 4.5 years or so. And sports betting has been one of the faster growing areas in state policymaking in recent years. There was a slew of sports betting legislation enacted in 2021, and the buzz has since slowed down now that most states have acted. In 2022, there were only 3 states that authorized sports betting, and in 2023, another 2 states authorized sports betting as well. Of the 13 states that don't have commercial sports betting, at least 7 of them saw legislation introduced to implement it. Several of the states that do not have mobile gaming have proposed expanding. There's only 25 states that have legal casino operations. So when it comes to sports betting legalization, you might think that there aren't many more states left, but 6 of the states that have legalized sports betting don't have casino-style gambling and are offering sports betting through as a lottery product. So it's possible that other states will turn to sports betting to help their lotteries as well. A common theme that we see cited by sports betting proponents is that sports betting offers an opportunity to bring in new revenue. Here you can see the sports betting tax rates in the states, just for the sake of comparison. The tax rates are really all over the map. There's only 4 states that have a relatively higher tax rate that falls between 36 and 51%. The states with lottery run operations take half of the revenue or just revenue minus expenses. 18 states have a tax rate somewhere between 10 and 20%, and another 5 states have tax rates below 10%. In general, the tax rates are the same for retail operators and mobile operators, but you can see that there's a handful of states that have a higher tax rate for mobile betting. This is typically intended to give a bit of an advantage to the brick and mortar operations. For example, New Jersey, as you can see, has a tax rate of 9.75% for retail sports betting and a higher tax rate of 14.25% for mobile sports betting. There's a lot of conversation around the appropriate tax rates to set. You want to strike that balance between raising revenue and also ensuring that you're still able to draw people away from the illicit gambling markets. At this point, it's kind of hard to see any relationship between tax rates and revenue performance. As we'll see in the following slides, whether or not states offer mobile sports betting or not seems to be more important at this moment. These are the licensing fees that states have adopted for sports betting operators. It's just a couple of states. There's other states that also have licensing fees, but for the sake of comparison, I've only listed a few here. The licensing fees vary just as widely as the tax rates, and some states don't have any, and some states are actually able to generate quite a bit of revenue from the application and licensing process. The money is typically used to offset startup and regulatory costs, which are typically a couple of $1 million. There are states that have set out higher licensing fees for mobile operators, and there's also variance in terms of who's authorized to operate sports betting. Early adopting states have tended to focus more on casinos or racetracks, but Montana offers sports betting licenses to bars and taverns, and other states like Maryland and Arizona allow major sports franchises to receive licenses or let them partner with sportsbook for licensure. And then again, several states run sports betting through a lottery. And 29 states and DC currently have mobile gaming operations up and running, or they've passed legislation to implement it. How this tends to work is that state lotteries or brick and mortar casinos contract with third party like FanDuel or DraftKings to create an online platform, or they launch one of their own. I think it's kind of interesting that although we've seen a handful of states enact mobile sports betting as part of a larger online gambling expansion, many states have approached it in isolation from other forms of internet gambling. Most states actually do not allow internet gambling. Of the 45 states with lotteries, there's only 14 that allow some form of internet play, either permitting lottery tickets to be sold over the internet or by offering online lottery subscriptions. Of the states with commercial casino gambling, internet gambling is available in fewer than half of them. It may be that there's political barriers to broader iGaming expansion, but the growth in mobile sports betting seems like it could be the harbinger that other forms of internet gambling will be more seriously considered in the coming years, especially given the potential revenue. One of the primary reasons that this hasn't happened is due in part to fears that online gaming will rob brick and mortar casinos and surrounding establishments of visitors and revenue. This fear is no longer as widespread across the casino industry. And in fact, many stakeholders are now pointing to evidence that internet gambling will actually help casinos. Those who are more inclined to bet online, they tend to be younger. They're not necessarily active casino goers. So iGaming may offer an opportunity to appeal to a broader market. The initial data so far seems to suggest that mobile sports betting is strongly correlated with improved sports betting revenue performance. And as far as I know, there's no signs that it's negatively impacting the casino industry. Certainly, it provided a bit of a boost during the height of the pandemic when physical casinos were forced to shut down in the spring of 2020. And again, the revenue potential for sports betting has been a very common selling point for supporters of sports betting legislation. And there's some eye-popping numbers associated with the size of the sports betting market. Gambling industry research estimated that in 2002, 18% of Americans were planning to place wagers on NFL games. And that's not including the tens of billions of dollars that have already been wagered at legal sports books nationwide. The thing about sports betting is that it's a relatively low margin revenue venture compared to some other types of gambling. and it's not likely to result in a true windfall. I'm just going to briefly illustrate why this is by segueing into a very rudimentary explanation of how sports betting works. So when taking bets on the outcome of any given sports contest, the goal for the sports book is to get people to wager on both teams equally, because this is what guarantees that they'll make money. If, let's say, I'm an operator and I'm taking bets from two people on the Broncos versus Chiefs game. Hypothetically, if this were an evenly matched game, I'd set even odds. So if you want to win $100, you have to bet $100. Then there's the vigorish, or the vig. It is charged by the sportsbook for taking the bet. The standard vig is 10%. So if you want to win $100, you really have to wager $110. So there's a $220 in the pot, which is known as the handle. If the Chiefs happen to win, the person who bet on them will win all the money, they bet, plus the other $100 that the other person bet. The other gambler loses all their money and they leave the operator with the $10 profit, or 4.55% of the total amount wagered. Of course, in reality, if sportsbooks set even odds, operators would have to shift the line and set odds for the less favored team, so that they would pay much better to keep the two sides relatively even. All that is to say that sports betting wagers received are paid out as winnings. Nationwide, the average hold or pre-tax operator profit for sportsbooks is just 8.1% of the total amount wagered. So in terms of state tax revenue, it's really not that much. Even in the most productive states for sports betting, such as New Jersey or Pennsylvania, sports betting brings in roughly 10 times less revenue than the lottery, and it's a fraction of total casino gambling revenue. Gambling is somewhere around 2.5% of total state revenues on average. So not to belittle the revenue that states are generating, because tens of millions of dollars is not anything to scoff at. But for states looking to sports betting as a potential budget fix, you're talking about a small fraction of a small fraction. This graphic here that you're seeing, it shows how sports betting revenue compared to overall casino gaming revenue in Nevada, back when it was still the only state offering sports betting. And here we have the non-mobile states, the states that do not offer mobile sports betting and their revenue performance. As a growing number of states move to legalize sports betting, the states that choose not to will be ceding some of their residents' gambling money to other states, and the states that have operations up and running are seeing their revenues continue to grow. One thing to note is that New York authorized sports betting in 2022, so the numbers here reflect when only retail sports betting was available. These states offer, like I said, only retail sports betting, and they've had operations up long enough to have worthwhile revenue data. It's really not much revenue being generated when you compare it to the states that have mobile sports betting, which I'll show momentarily. The entire state of New York generated less than $2 million in fiscal year 2021. And that's likely partly due to the impact of the coronavirus, but it's still much less revenue than its neighboring states. Sports betting in Delaware is actually bringing in a fair amount of revenue that's comparable to other small states with mobile sports betting, but they have a 50% tax rate. So that kind of helps explain the numbers that you're seeing. Arkansas and New York were both states that authorized mobile sports betting fairly recently, in 2022. The data you're seeing here for Arkansas, fiscal year 2022 captures only 4 months of sports betting revenue collections, while fiscal year 2023 has a first full year of mobile sports betting revenue collections. I also added fiscal year 2021 for comparison. In New York, fiscal year 22 to 23 was the first full year that they collected revenue from mobile sports betting. They do have a higher tax rate of 51% on mobile sports betting, which kind of explains the large difference from previous years' revenue collections. And here you can see that states like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Indiana are generating millions of dollars annually. These are 3 states that had mobile sports betting operations up and running before most others, so they have more established markets. In all 3 of these states, the sports betting numbers, mobile, they're pretty striking. They're the lion's share of sports betting activity taking place in the state. Roughly 85% of sports betting revenue in Pennsylvania comes from online wagers. In Indiana, mobile sports betting accounted for 88% of total receipts in fiscal year 22, and it went up to 92% in fiscal year 2023. In Iowa, we have mobile sports betting was 85% of the total revenue in fiscal year 2022, and it grew to 88% in fiscal year 2023. In Rhode Island, it's a little bit different. Mobile sports betting has been a little bit less productive, and it's accounted for 56% of total book revenue in fiscal year 2022, and it grew to 64% in fiscal year 2023. Like Rhode Island, Nevada also doesn't have a mobile sports betting industry that dominates as much. This is in part because physical casinos are such a big draw for the state. However, they are also the lone state that has a requirement for all gamblers to register in person at casinos in order to set up a mobile gaming account. This is a responsible gaming measure, and it's intended to prevent underage gaming or other unauthorized users. It does also have the potential to dampen revenues. The gaming industry research that exists suggests that prospective gamblers find it inconvenient to have to register in person, and it's also prohibitive in some cases for these prospective gamblers. Rhode Island initially did require in-person registrations, but they ended up letting go of that requirement because of underperforming revenues. Iowa also had a similar measure that they ended up leaving behind after initially adopting mobile sports betting, and their numbers have improved as a result. In lieu of in-person registration, there are other ways that states have tried to eliminate illicit or fraudulent gambling. There's usually other forms of ID verification. The sign-up process can typically require a meaningful amount of personal information, including a part or all of the patron's social security number. In Oregon, for example, individuals have to, when they create a player account, they have to register with the lottery within 30 days. The player needs to provide information like a government-issued photo ID or a proof of address documentation. For age verification, there's additional technology that exists. Several states allow internet lottery ticket sales, such as Pennsylvania and Michigan, and they've used age verification instead of requiring in-person ticket purchases. And all of the states with mobile gaming do use geolocation technology, which determines where a player is located based on their IP address and network connection parameters. This ensures that bets are only placed within state borders. So a lot of states have set reporting requirements for operators to ensure that adequate controls are in place along with responsible gaming plans. And of course, with the gambling expansion and specifically making gambling opportunities available with just a few clicks, it's still a contentious issue in a lot of states. Mobile wagering has increased significantly during the pandemic, and it seems that problem gambling may also have seen an uptick. In Michigan, calls to the state's gambling helpline nearly doubled between February 2020 and February 2021, after sports wagering was launched in January while the casinos were closed or operating at a limited capacity. There's a couple of common ways that states seek to reduce problem gambling or provide resources for gambling addiction, although it sometimes feels like a bit of an afterthought. Some states have put limits on aggressive advertising. Most states allow people to place themselves on voluntary self-exclusion lists so that they can't gamble in the future. They also require the creation of gambling addiction hotlines or require operators to display information on fostering healthy betting decisions inside a sports wagering lounge, or these must be included on their online platforms. Mobile technology does offer new digital tools to further responsible gaming. Some states have requirements for operators to ensure that their systems initiate a break and play to avoid binging. States like New York and New Jersey require a warning message to appear after a player has deposited $2,500 into their online wagering account throughout their lifetime. Notably, it also caps annual credit card deposits at $2,500. And you will also see that states often dedicate some of the sports betting revenue to gambling addiction programs, and I've provided a few examples here. But this pretty much wraps up the trends that we've been seeing in state policies and state policy making as far as sports betting goes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it and appreciate the good work of NCSL. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Chris, you're welcome to stay there at your seat, or you can go to the podium, and that's for the remaining speakers as well.
I will take you up at sitting at the place here. And I will note for the record that I'm the only one sitting at this table. I'm not sure why the tax person sits by himself at every meeting I go to. I'm Chris Graham. I'm the Commissioner of Revenue here in Mississippi. I'll be very brief. Gaming in Mississippi in the fiscal year that just ended June 30th of this year brought in $303 million to the state that we collected. Of the amount that we collected, about $162 million of that goes to the state general fund. About $100 million went to the locals, the counties and municipalities. And then the other 40 million or so went to the Department of Transportation. So that's total gaming revenue collected by the Department of Revenue. Out of the 40 million or so that went to the Department of Transportation, about 5 million of that was a result of online, sports betting. I'm getting my topics confused. So it generated about 5 million. All of that is our gaming executive director said that all goes to the Department of Transportation. That's set to expire June 30th, 2028, I believe, unless the legislature does something on that. We also have a state lottery. We do not collect revenues. The lottery commission collects those revenues through their agreements with the people who sell. Just keep in mind, last year that brought in about $123 million to the state as well. So we do have lottery here in our state as well. You know, our main interest in any of legislation that comes out of this is making sure that whatever we pass is clear, you know, what the taxes is, who we need to collect it from, and what the rate should be. But thank you all for having us.
Thank you, Chris. Mr. Ronald?
Thank you very much. Ron Rishlock, I'm a law professor at the University of Mississippi. Honored to be on this task force. Just for my background, why I'm here, I guess. I started working in gaming law in the 1980s in Chicago, the law firm of Jenner and Block. We represented Bally's, the pinball people, and they had a contract with the Illinois State Lottery. That was some of my work when I joined the faculty at Ole Miss in 1987. And academia is published for parish. I said, well, I know about this stuff no one else knows about. So I wrote some articles that evolved into teaching a course, evolved into co-authoring the first textbook. We're in our second edition now in gaming law. And so I've studied the area for some time. It's a fascinating area of law. I've also been involved a little bit when we first got sports betting in Mississippi. And to that end, I suppose I'll talk about the things that I've tried to think of things that I think we need to consider as a task force as we go forward. The athletic director, by the way, I'm the faculty athletic representative, chair of the athletics committee, and on the executive committee of the SEC, Southeastern Conference, the real SEC, which means I have concerns for athletics, for the university, for the conference as well. Those sort of matters, there are unique concerns relating to them. Putting all those things together, I was lucky enough to be part of a coalition of athletic directors and compliance officers that met with Jay when sports betting was first legal in Mississippi. And we did put together and got an agreement that I would like to see continue forward, that there would be no proposition bets based upon the individual performance of an individual college athlete at any time. So we've had that in place currently. And as we go forward, I think that's a wise thing. We've seen, I don't know if anybody saw, but the basketball coach from the University of Dayton, maybe 6 months ago now, went on a tirade because his players were getting ripped, individuals were being ripped, getting threatening texts, being tweets and other things like that. So I would like to see that continue. Also like to see, and I don't know exactly how, and I'm not saying it should be necessarily criminal, but I would like to, whatever protection we could have of our college athletes in particular from harassment relating to their play. I think that would be important. I just completed an article to be published in the Gaming Law Review, published at UNLV this fall, looking at mobile sports betting in college campuses. It's directed more towards college administrators than anything else, but I go through a number of factors that they should look at. One of the things that I think is important that could be part of the Mississippi law would be restrictions on linkage of partnerships between the universities and the sports books. And that's happened. I mean, LSU did it. LSU backed out of it, and after they originally reached an agreement, Colorado did it. Some other schools have partnerships with gambling entities. And if you're trying to convince students that this is a bad thing to do, having a linkage officially through the university seems to me to be a particularly problematic thing to do. So to the extent we can work on that, I think that would be a good thing. In case people don't know, the NCAA prohibits its athletes and people who work around athletics, including myself, from betting on not just NCAA games, but the NCAA regulates basketball. So basketball at any level, you can't bet on. You can be a college lacrosse player, you can't bet on NFL games because football is regulated by the NFL. When we put together the deal for premise-based sports betting, we put in a place to bar athletes and people who work around athletes from entering the sports book. If we can develop something so that the schools can, so it's easy to make sure the schools don't run afoul of these NCAA regulations, if there's a way to prohibit athletes to create a blacklist, I don't know if there is. But there, if you followed Alabama's baseball coach, I guess he wasn't doing it himself yet. That's a separate thing, but we've got in Utah, not Utah, in Iowa, we've had athletes getting in trouble for betting. If there's a way to work around and try to make it more difficult to run afoul of those NCAA regulations, that would be a good thing. I am concerned about reach out to particularly college age, it's men from 21 to 28 or something are the biggest at risk people. And I'm worried about reaching out. I don't know if there's a way to limit that or not, but these entities know if I'm winning that day or losing that day, know if I want to parlay my winnings or recoup for my losses, know what my favorite teams are, my favorite kind of bets are, and they have the ability to reach out to me and invite me to do some kind of things. I think that's something for us to be thinking about. I don't know the answer, but that's an issue. The other issue that I also don't know the answer to is all the age verification in the world doesn't matter if your best friend will place your bets for you. And on college campuses, that's going to be an issue as well. So appreciate the opportunity to be part of this. Look forward to hearing from other people.
Thank you. Penny, you can stay where you're at, or you can go to the podium.
Good afternoon. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Penny Bankston, and I serve as the chair of the Mississippi Gaming Hospitality Association. First, let me give you the mission statement of our association. The MGHA works to advance the gaming industry in Mississippi through advocacy, education, and cooperation with government and the public. Our mission is to promote fair regulation and taxation, as well as responsible gaming practices. Furthermore, the Mississippi Gaming and Hospitality Association complies strictly with our antitrust laws. Members cannot discuss restricting competition, pricing, allocating customers, or refusal to deal with a supplier or a particular class of suppliers. As you may be aware, online sports betting is an issue that has sparked passionate debate within our industry. There are thoughtful arguments on both sides. Some casinos view wagering as an important new revenue stream and a way to engage younger customers. Others are concerned it could cannibalize existing business and are worried about the problem gaming and regulatory challenges. Because our industry is divided on this issue, my role as MGHA chair is not to advocate one side or the other. Rather, I believe it's important that we have an open and honest dialogue about the potential pros and cons of this legislation. There are reasonable arguments on both sides, which you will hear today. As the task force considers these positions, we should gather as much data as possible on the experiences of other states that have legalized online sports betting. We need to fully understand the projected benefits and risks based on unbiased analysis. If we ultimately decide to support the legislation, we should work to shape it in a way that protects Mississippi casinos and their communities. And if we oppose it, we should clearly communicate our concerns to the lawmakers and to the public. I know there are strong feelings within our industry. However, I encourage all of us to engage in this debate with empathy, truly listening to each other's perspectives. Our diversity of viewpoints only makes us stronger. In my role as MGHA chair, I will always be open-minded. I will seek facts, not opinions, and foster a thoughtful dialogue. Only by working together can we arrive at the best path forward for Mississippi gaming and in our hospitality industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Mike?
Good afternoon, Chairman Ewer and Chairman Blunt and members of the task force. My name is Michael Bruffy. I've been a gaming attorney now for 23 years. During that time, I also served 8 years as deputy director of the MGHA, our association in the state. Currently, I am serving as Vice President, General Counsel, and representative of Island View Casino Resort in Gulfport. I want to thank you for providing Island View the opportunity to serve on this committee to study the issue of statewide online sports betting. I also want to thank you for the restraint that has been exhibited over the last 4 years in regard to this issue. We know there has been great pressure to legalize online sports betting statewide. And I think this time has given us a chance to look across the country and see some of the results, and I think Andrea touched on some of those, and it was nice to have that data that we otherwise would not have had had we moved forward already. As you know, Mr. Rick Carter and Mr. Terry Green are the principal owners of Island View. Rick and Terry are both from Gulfport, Mississippi. And over the past 32 plus years, Rick and Terry have been in the gaming industry. And they have grown their business from one of the smallest casinos to one of the largest casinos in the state. Island View has over 1,500 employees, and it contributes substantially to the economy of the city of Gulfport and the state of Mississippi as a whole. We currently have a lease with the Mississippi State Port Authority and MDA, and we literally pay them millions in lease payments every year. We also have made commitments to the city of Gulfport of $2 million for their Harbor Lights Festival. We've made commitments of $2 million to the Mississippi State Aquarium. In 2022, Island View was voted as one of the top 10 casinos in the United States. So the point we kind of want to focus on here is the way we've been doing things, where our business is, how our industry has thrived, and what we're proposing. So to begin where we started and where we are, we know that from its inception, gaming was legalized in limited areas to be a tourism driver, a job creator, and a source of tax revenue for state and local governments where gaming takes place. And I think Chris went over those numbers with us. I think it was 303 million, 162 million went to the state, 100 million local, and 40 million went to the Department of Transportation. So there's no question it's been successful. So Rick and Terry saw the potential benefits of gaming, and they have supported the law that initially allowed for this activity, first on cruises, then dockside gaming, and then following Hurricane Katrina, the law allowed casinos to rebuild on shore. We know that this law, House Bill 45, was passed to encourage and aid the casinos to rebuild after Katrina. And Rick and Terry did that. They did that very thing. And within a year after the storm, they reopened as Island View Casino. And we're actually this month celebrating 17 years. We also know that when House Bill 45 passed, the legislators involved wrote in the House Journal, "We are not expanding gaming." They made their legislative intent crystal clear. There can be no question that gaming is limited in Mississippi to those counties where it has been approved, there are 7, and to narrowly defined areas within those counties. And over the past 32 years, the casino operators together have supported the location requirement rules. We have heard it said many times that our industry has made decisions involving billions of dollars based on these rules, and together we have supported upholding them. The topic of study before this task force is without question an effort to change the rules and expand gaming. Thus, the industry is now divided. From what we have studied and where we sit, Island View believes it is clear that changing this law will benefit online gaming companies, but without the essential benefits that have been tied to gaming from its inception. Those are jobs, tourism, and tax. So we're here today as active participants in this task force, and we're just looking for answers. Why should we support such a fundamental change in our law? What are the benefits? What are the negatives? And ultimately, the question is this: what is best for Mississippi. On behalf of Island View, Mr. Carter and Mr. Green, we thank you again for the opportunity to be part of this task force, and we look forward to having productive meetings, discussions, and sharing of information.
Thank you, Mike. Jonathan?
Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Jones, Senior Vice President, General Manager at Harrah's Gulf Coast. First, I want to say it's an honor to serve with all you, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with you my experiences and those of my colleagues at Caesars Entertainment. Here in Mississippi, in addition to Harrah's Gulf Coast, we operate Tropicana Greenville, Isle, Lula, and Horseshoe Tunica. We have almost 2,000 team members and generate hundreds of millions of dollars in taxable revenues. I understand the importance of the issue at hand, and I recognize that we have an opportunity here to help shape an important policy for not just the industry, but for the state. Caesars Entertainment operates the most casinos in North America. And more importantly to this conversation, as of our launch in Kentucky today, we operate sports betting in 30 North American jurisdictions, 24 of which are through our mobile app. That's the most of any company. The state of Mississippi wisely became an early adopter of legal sports betting following the repeal of PASPA in 2018. I think we were all pretty proud of that. Mississippi realized there are many reasons to legalize and regulate sports betting, including, number one, consumer protections. Prior to the repeal of PASPA, many Americans still participated in sports betting, but they did so through mobile apps and websites run by companies based in other countries. These companies can decline to pay winning bets or even accept bets from minors without legal repercussion. Number two, anti-money laundering. People involved in criminal enterprises have used these offshore companies to launder money outside of the reporting requirements of federal laws. Number three, problem gaming. The offshore apps do not offer responsible gaming resources or tools to aid people in need of them. And number four, revenue. Americans spend money made in America and bet on games primarily taking place in America, only to send the money to a company in another country. This is economic activity taking place here without paying a fair share to contribute locally. Because of the geographic nuances of Mississippi casinos relative to population centers, many Mississippians still choose to use these offshore apps today or travel to nearby states where mobile wagering is offered. I think you all saw Jay's numbers where 600 million went to 535, which is headed to 510 this year. Numerous polls have shown that Americans prefer to place sports wagers through legal means. Many who are placing bets with offshore companies are not aware that those sites are illegal. Allowing legal, regulated, responsible gaming companies to offer mobile sports betting will result in more Mississippians betting on legal, reputable apps. The legal apps require bettors to identify themselves using their name, address, phone number, date of birth, driver's license, and last four digits of their social security number. This ensures that bettors who are who they say they are, so minors are not able to open accounts and large deposits can be tracked so as not to be used to launder money obtained criminally. Most states require mobile sports betting apps to offer responsible gaming tools such as self-chosen cooling off periods of 72 hours up to a year, self-selected deposit or betting limits, and even permanent or year-long self-exclusions. Finally, the money won by gaming companies will be taxed and used for the betterment of the state. With many states seeing 90% of sports bets placed through mobile apps and websites, it's time for Mississippi to take the next step. As a state with a mature gaming industry, these licenses should be awarded by the Mississippi Gaming Commission to companies who operate brick and mortar casinos in the state. These are companies you know, you can trust, and can penalize if they make errors. These companies have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in the state and employ more than 16,000 of our residents. We know how to do this, and the MGC knows how to license and regulate us. In closing, it's not lost on me that tonight kicks off the NFL season, and there's a lot of excitement in neighboring states to accept wagers and generate taxable revenue from that. We've had 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to figure it out. At Caesars Entertainment, we believe the time's now to pass some smart regulation and legislation that's in the best interest of the state and its residents, and we're honored to be able to participate in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Don?
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm also honored to be serving on this task force with you. I believe it's very important work that we're doing here. My name is Don Mitchell. I'm one of the owners of Foundation Gaming and Entertainment. We're a privately owned casino company headquartered here in Mississippi. We own 2 casinos in Mississippi, the Waterview Casino and Hotel in Vicksburg and the Fitz Casino and Hotel in Tunica. I'd like to start by thanking both Chairman Blunt and Chairman Ure for putting this task force together. We're open to listening to all sides of this discussion and trying to gather all the relevant information about what we believe is a very complex and frankly controversial issue that is online sports betting. I was born and raised in Biloxi. I've been working in the casino industry here in Mississippi from the very beginning. I've worked in the casino industry all over the country as well as in other countries. And the one thing that I've always appreciated is that Mississippi really did gaming right. It was never just about tax revenue. When gaming was first legalized in Mississippi, there were 3 primary reasons why it was allowed. First and foremost, to create jobs in the state, and it's done that. We've created tens of thousands of jobs, good jobs, with career paths for many. And it was truly transformative for areas like my hometown of Biloxi, as well as Vicksburg and Tunica, where it came to be known as the Mississippi Miracle. Secondly, gaming was brought to Mississippi to grow capital investment, and it's resulted in billions of dollars of capital investment in the state. Many beautiful hotel resort casinos have been developed, facilities that are constantly maintained and upgraded over the years with further capital investment. And third, gaming was legalized to grow our economy through tourism by bringing in people and money from outside of the state, which it has done, providing hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue annually. These points are further highlighted by the fact that there are minimum requirements set forth by our regulators in order to build a new casino in the state. Not only does it have to be a legal casino site, but it must be a minimum size, a minimum number of high-quality hotel rooms, among other things, and have a unique amenity in order to attract new visitors into the market. These are set forth to ensure that new casinos help to grow the existing market by bringing in visitors from outside of the state, and they don't just cannibalize the existing operations. Additionally, when gaming was legalized in Mississippi, it was done very deliberately. It was not allowed to spread all across the state. It was limited to the Mississippi River and the Mississippi Gulf Coast areas. It was also set forth that each authorized county could have its own local referendum to approve gaming. In fact, there are counties in the state today that could legally have casinos, but have chosen not to, such as Jackson County and DeSoto County, as is their right. So as we consider this proposed legislation to allow online sports betting, I take note of how far removed it is from the initial reasons of why gaming was allowed in Mississippi to begin with. Online sports betting will be a massive expansion of gaming across the entire state in every county without a local referendum. This new form of online gaming will not benefit the state the way that casino gaming has. It will not add any new meaningful jobs into the state. It will not result in any meaningful capital investment, maybe a few new computer servers. And it will not drive any meaningful tax revenues to the state. Additionally, it's not going to bring in any outside tourism dollars to the state as well. By statute, all online gaming revenues have to be geo-fenced from within the state, thus targeting our local Mississippians for any growth. Online sports betting will be making gaming available to everybody in our state borders that has a cell phone and a credit card. And this gambling will be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just by picking up your cell phone. There's not going to be any third party there who's going to be held responsible by the regulators to make sure that minors aren't gambling on their brothers' or mother's accounts. Unsurprisingly, the core demographic for online sports betting are young men. We are concerned that this proposed online sports betting legislation has significantly more downside for the state than upside, and the likelihood that it will increase in compulsive gaming and underage gaming problems, as well as diminish and undermine the existing brick and mortar casino industry in the state. Ultimately, we believe that will result in lower jobs in the state and potentially a lower number of casinos. Frankly, we can't really understand why the state is pushing for this expansion of gaming. Sports betting only generates about $7 to $8 million of tax revenues annually. So even if that number doubles, which is not likely to grow that much, then it's still not really meaningful to the state. I do understand why the industry is interested in pushing for this new online business model, because it ultimately results in driving revenues from the brick and mortar casinos into the more profitable online platform. This is the same thing that happened with Amazon, where we saw retail businesses moving from in brick and mortar locations to online, resulting in many retail malls closing, as well as other big brand names that you know. That is not better for the state of Mississippi. In an effort to better understand this issue and to ensure that we're just not biased in our views, we have engaged a well-known, well-respected professor from the University of Southern Mississippi, Mr. Greg Bradley, to do a study on these issues across the country as well as internationally. We expect to have that white paper available for everybody to review soon. Lastly, we're concerned that the proposed legislation could be opening up a can of worms with the potential for many unintended consequences that frankly we don't fully appreciate yet. There are several significant unanswered questions that aren't addressed in the legislation, all of which we hope to have brought up and addressed through these task force deliberations. I look forward to our conversations.
Thank you, Don. Kevin?
All right, thank you very much. I want to start off. I'm Kevin Cochran, Director of Legal and Government Affairs at DraftKings. Thank you, Chairman Ure and Chairman Blunt, for the opportunity to be on this task force. I'm truly looking forward to working with all of you. I've met a couple of you before, and I've seen a bunch of you at industry conferences for a long time. So getting to get up, shake your hands, and say hello has been fantastic. I also take this responsibility very seriously, and once again, thankful for the appointment today. I think my perspective is going to be slightly unique compared to others on this task force. I work for DraftKings. We're a digital entertainment company that operates mobile sports wagering in 21 states and retail sports wagering in 12 states. We just launched a sports book in Kentucky today. So kicking off the NFL season, we're very excited about that. We're also a licensed distributor and manufacturer in the state of Mississippi. Through my role on our government affairs team, I've gotten to work on the development and successful passage of sports wagering in all different types of states across the country. To date, our math differs slightly from what NCSL presented earlier, but we believe that there are 34 states plus the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico that have authorized some form of sports wagering, including Mississippi. Of those 36 jurisdictions, 31 have authorized some form of statewide mobile sports wagering, and 26 have mobile sports wagering operating within their borders today. I think what I really want everyone to hear today is that mobile sports wagering has been a success in those jurisdictions. Gaming revenue across the country, as shown by the numbers we've seen today in 2022, continues to grow. Individuals are able to choose whether they want to participate in mobile sports wagering, and if they make that choice, we want them to be able to wager on a regulated sports wagering platform that provides customers consumer protections and access to responsible gaming information. Jonathan outlined that very, very clearly and did a great job. This is something that is not provided to persons using the illegal offshore market or still engaging with local bookies around the country. Legal sports wagering operates most effectively when it is available to a person with how they want to interact with it. This means that people that want to bring cash into a casino and watch a full NFL game should be able to continue to do that. However, today being the first day of the NFL season, I believe that there are people in this state right now trying to wager on regulated apps and being unable to, or wagering on illegal sites right now. Chiefs, probably, but I'm not very good at picking sports, so I'll keep my opinions out of this. Not only is the state missing out on potential revenue, which could be between 20 and 25 million, it's also missing out on the ability to provide Mississippians safeguards. They want to prevent fraud, they want to guarantee consumers get paid, and they want to have access to responsible gaming resources. For the next meeting, I'm going to try to get a bigger version of this, and I'll make sure the group has it beforehand. But we spoke with GeoComply, who is a geolocation company that a lot of the mobile sports wagering apps work with. And they provided us some data of what's happened in Mississippi during the first 2 weekends of the college football season this year. So from August 3rd to September, or August 27th to September 3rd, the first weekend of college football, they detected approximately 204,000 transactions in Mississippi. These transactions were trying to be made from 16,600 unique accounts. This data also shows, and they have the ability to ping you red when you're in a place where you cannot place a regulated wager, and ping you green when you travel to a state where you can. The data shows that people loaded the regulated apps, tried in Mississippi, crossed the border, became green, and placed bets, with approximately 35% going to Louisiana and 65% going to Tennessee. This data also emphasizes a point I started to make earlier. If given the choice, people want to use a regulated product as long as it is comparatively convenient. In previous studies performed by the AGA, almost 3/4 of people polled said it was important to only use legal sports books. In that same poll, over half of them admitted to using an illegal sports book in the past year, and 84% of them were surprised to learn that the way they were wagering was with an illegal sports book. Mobile sports wagering also provides an opportunity to better understand and interact with a coveted demographic while giving those customers the safeguards and RG resources that they might need. The FSGA, the Fantasy Sports Gaming Association, in the 2023 survey compiled the following demographics of a sports bettor. 60% male, 38% between the ages of 18 and 34, 79% have a college degree or higher, and 63% made more than $50,000. If you look at another study performed by Ipsos, they actually have that number at 44% is over $100,000. So these are mostly college-educated, affluent individuals that have discretionary income and view sports wagering as entertainment. Mobile sports wagering also enhances the relationships between land-based casinos and their mobile partners, mutually benefiting from increased communication and contact with persons in the state. Mobile partners can help foot traffic to casinos, putting on live events and experiences to their customers to get them to continue the sports betting experience. Further, depending on the relationship, mobile sports wagering can integrate rewards programs to draw individuals to the casino and bring exposure to the land-based casinos. For example, this is a big time for fantasy football. I was just looking around at some of the DraftKings partner websites, and if you looked at the Golden Nugget in Louisiana, if you go onto the sportsbook page, the first thing that pops up is have a DraftKings fantasy football draft party here, right? So we are bringing people to the casino. You get to interact with, a DraftKings provided sportsbook while you're also getting 10, 15 of your friends together to do a fantasy football draft there. This is real people coming into the casinos, spending money, engaging with sports. Mobile sports wagering is also a way to capitalize on the important tourism already helping fuel Mississippi's economy. I know a couple members of the task force have talked about this, but I will say that one of the things people my age do, especially on days like today where there's an NFL game, if for whatever reason they're flying into the state, they'll land, they'll open their phone and they'll say, can I bet on this game tonight? They may have an app from an out of state or from a different state where they're already using it and they're familiar with. So the customer friction is lessened as well by having mobile sports wagering available. And if someone is in Mississippi and they are unable to make those bets, they're either going to be placing them with the illegal bookie in the state, or they're just not going to be able to capture any of the revenue within the state. Another benefit of mobile sports wagering is it offers increased capabilities. So there are different types of bets that are just not feasible to make in person, bets that are very popular with sports bettors. We have dynamic trading and pricing that can change by any play of a game. Because of the operational challenges with accepting those bets in a retail environment, mobile opens up the different types of markets, including in-play wagering that are popular and available on the illegal market. For the record, we were looking at this the other day. If you go on the illegal websites right now, they offer markets that are not approved by regulators. They were all offering wagering on the Little League World Series, right? That is something you will never see in a regulated sportsbook environment, even on the mobile apps especially. And Jonathan did a great job, so I won't belabor this point, but mobile apps are also secure. You can see that some of the casinos in the state are already offering mobile apps, offering protections to people, making sure players are who they say they are. And expanding mobile would really mean expanding the boundary of approved technology, which may already be operated in the state. I realize my time is almost up, but I want to emphasize mobile sports wagering works. It helps people, the phrase I always use, I forget where I heard it, we have to try to get them to break up with their bookies and provide consumer safeguards and access to RG tools and information. People are trying to use these regulated products right now, and most people want to use this regulated product. If the state authorizes sports wagering, it'll also add revenue, and it would add another arrow into the state's gaming quiver, providing the state's casinos the ability to leverage a mobile sports wagering partner's reach and familiarity with a younger, coveted gaming demographic. The technology is also popular, safe, and provides for a really exciting experience. This is something people want to do in the state, and that is proven by the way they were doing it just this past weekend. I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to be a part of this task force, and I look forward to engaging with all of you.
Thank you, Kevin. At this time, I'd like to just open up to the members. If anyone has any questions to another member, if we want to have some conversation before we end the meeting. Don?
Chairman, perhaps you could give us a view of what you expect the outcome of this task force to be and how many meetings, and there are certain people that we would certainly think should be invited to come speak. Maybe you can let us
Yeah,
know
so
how this is going to work.
My thoughts and Senator Blunt's thoughts, the next meeting, we'll open it up to people in the industry for their comment. I feel like we'll have a meeting in October and probably a final meeting in November. If we needed one in December, we'll have a fourth one. If we don't feel the need to, we don't have to. And like I said before, and I'll go ahead and kind of give you my closing remarks on that. As I said, when we opened the meeting up, the House position and House leadership position is that we will see whether it passes or not, but there will be a mobile sports betting bill this year. I feel like my number one goal, and I didn't mention this earlier, my number one goal is to protect bricks and mortar. Another goal of mine is to not even get anywhere near iGaming. I'm here to talk about mobile sports betting. So I feel like as we move forward, my goal, like I said earlier, on this task force is to come up with the best bill. As I said, my bill last year, had a 12-month in person. I think things have changed and we might see that we don't do that, or we might keep that. I'm not sure. That's what, the task force is for. What we see, us as lawmakers, we want to make sure that we, like one of y'all said, we've done gaming right in Mississippi, and I want to continue that. So y'all are the operators. Y'all are the ones that are out there every day. Y'all know what's best. And we just want to make sure we take all the right information and come up with the best bill we can for a mobile sports betting. So thank y'all very much. I'll turn it over to Senator Blunt. I think today was very productive. I think we got some good information. I think the next meeting we'll get into some deeper, tougher discussions and start. I can only speak to what I want to do as far as going through the bill, talking about points of my bill, how the bill should look on my end. So thank y'all very much, and I look forward to the next meeting.
Before we close, Representative McKnight or Senator Thompson, anything? Any good? I'll say this, from my perspective, is an open study committee that is the start of a process that may result in a bill by the end of next April, which is roughly 7 months from now. We want to be careful, and Chairman Uri and I want to be careful if there's anybody who wants to be heard in this process, that everybody is heard. So if you know someone who you think needs to address this committee, either in person or virtually, please talk to him or to me or to our assistants, and we'll work with you on that. As far as my personal perspective, I'm here to listen and to learn. I have, since being named to this position, I have learned and developed great respect for the tens of thousands of Mississippians who go to work every day and support their family in this business and its important role in our economy that creates jobs, that brings new people and new investment to this state. And we've done all we can to protect that and to grow that. That's the important thing to me. I've also observed, the way we have sports betting in Mississippi to begin with is sometimes the legislature, we get something that we didn't think we were going to get when we voted on the bill. That's why we have sports betting. I think when the origins of gaming in this state, I think very, very few people in the legislature, when they voted on that legislation, thought we would get what we got. So we want to be very careful that we don't have unintended consequences with anything that we do, because we want to protect jobs that are in place. And again, just speaking for myself, and I agree with the House Chairman on this, I'm not interested in iGaming or anything that could result in something that we did not intend to do, whether it's video lottery terminals or iGaming or anything like that. We want to study what's in the best interest of the state. All of this will, we hope, result in a report that will be, that the bill requires be jointly approved by the two chairmen and prepared by the peer committee. And that will simply be a starting point for the legislature in January. And then we'll work the process. But whatever happens come January, I think we'll be in a better position from having done this. So we have a little bit of time and we can breathe a little bit, and but I would just encourage everyone, that this meeting is the start of something that may or may not result in legislation at the end of April, where we can come to an agreement or not. But the way to do that is to talk to each other, and that's why we're here. So unless anybody has anything else for the task force, you heard House Chairman say we want to do this again in October. If you have people that you think we need to hear from, let us know. Our situation in Mississippi is, we are a gaming state. And so I'm interested in looking at how this works in states where there are brick and mortar casinos, because I'm like Casey, I want to protect those brick and mortar casinos. So I think that's all we have. We appreciate everybody coming today, and we will post, we'll communicate with members of the task force and to the public the next meeting. Thank you very much.